Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic, and welcome to this episode of Into the Storm. With me today, of course, is Penny Kelly. You can find her at pennykelly.com and also on her Patreon and YouTube here at Penny Kelly Official. Penny, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Hi, everybody out there. Hi, Meg.
Excited to have this conversation. And folks, please also join me in welcoming the lovely Meg. You can find her at beyondmystic.net here for the consultations. And you can also find her on a daily Astro Weekly show here on a Rumble. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Meg, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm surviving during this Mercury retrograde. I'm having a very weird day where I can't move my neck ever since I woke up. And I've never had that before. It was very, very strange. When I woke up, I was screaming for Jens, help me, I can't move my neck. And then when I finally was able to move and I got onto my laptop completely broke down. So I'm just having a totally Mercury retrograde moment, you guys. And I apologize to everyone that I look ridiculous right now, but I just have to have this neck brace on for the moment.
I thought you just came off the Alexander McQueen Fashion Week runway or something. It was a new outfit, but you look great nonetheless. But do let us know, Meg, if you don't feel good, you can drop off the show anytime.
Yeah.
I thought you were okay today. I didn't know about this. So if for some reason you don't feel well continuing the show, just let us know. And
all good.
Yeah, and we'll ask our audience members to send you some healing energy here during the live show. And,
thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, folks, thank you so much for joining us here today. This is our typical Into the Storm session. We're going to get into Penny's look-sees. There's a lot of weird stuff happening for April. We're also going to add to that some of the astrology. That's why Meg's here today to help us understand here some of the outlying energies. But before we do that, we're currently simulcasting, of course, on YouTube also. So I want to start, and let's tread lightly maybe for the first 5 or 10 minutes here. I want to talk about this in-between time, where, of course, between these two eclipses, it means a lot, and it means different things to different people right now. But ultimately, that in-between time is also an opportunity to kind of revisit, perhaps, and take a deep look at those karmic relationships that no longer serve us, seeing as these eclipses here are focused in that particular aspect of things. And on top of that, we just now entered a retrograde, which typically is also a good time to go within or in between, so to speak. So, Penny, let me ask you first. These are weird energies. People are reporting a lot of weird symptoms in the last week or so already. It appears it's going to get even worse moving forward. How are you dealing with the energies, and what can you say about this in-between period? If there's any advice you want to share with the audience, now's the time. Penny.
Yeah. So I see it not just as we're in between eclipses. From my point of view, we're in between paradigms. And what we see happening right now, this period between the eclipses, is the bottom of the barrel for the old world. It's done. The new paradigm begins to be evident in so many ways, maybe not until June or July, but this period right now, we hit bottom and then we start back up very slowly. And there's a whole bunch of stuff happening that is distracting. Some of it will be frightening to some people. Some of it will be quite an inconvenience. Storms are especially, I see storms. I see like no spring. It's just all storms. And so there's just I think we just have to navigate this period the best way we can. I have noticed that, man, I have to be paying attention. I had a stiff neck the other day and I could hardly move. And I ended up doing, some of my magic exercises. I've developed this eye exercise that works the spine and it does something. It does some wonderful stuff. So other than that, I'm busy beyond all reason. So it's like, okay, next.
Right. You keep me busy with work here to fill in the gaps. Let me just redirect you on this in-between time. As I understand, we're between two different realities, like the old world falling apart and this new world coming up. So we're seeing that manifest in a lot of those old infrastructures that are breaking down, the politicians going absolutely batshit crazy. We're seeing all that now too. But speak to the personal level. It very much feels that on a personal level, it seems that we're also perhaps that butterfly that's just about to fly also. So we need to shed off this old skin, the old paradigms or the old systems
Right.
of belief that don't serve us anymore. And it's quite frankly, I think it's unnerving. A lot of people are having this weird feeling. They don't know quite what it is yet, but it's really, how do I say it? It's like it's
Yeah.
like never seen before. I don't know how to say it. It's like it's at a level or it's at a volume that we've never felt before. All through our lives, we're all adults. We're people watching the show. They've had these moments in time where they change. They become their new selves. But it feels this
Right.
time is different. Why is that? I'll ask you first, and then I'll ask Meg.
Okay. There's from my point of view, what I see happening is that this is the period, this quarter, this 3 months, that we end up changing our entire frequency set. Everybody is adjusting. They might not really be thinking that they're doing that, but when you're seeing what's happening, and then we fuss a little, we worry, and then we talk to others, and all of that ends up changing our perspective, our expectations, and how we feel about what we're going through. A lot of people have just been sitting back watching, expecting that it'll get fixed somehow. And it will, but it's going to require a lot more participation. And what I see is people are changing themselves in a way that brings them into readiness, if I can say it that way, to be more active in their own lives. When it comes right down to it, doesn't matter what's happening to the other guy.
Right.
It matters what's happening right here in your own self, in your own home, in your own family. And I'm looking at some of the strategies that people are going to use as we move through the rest of the year. And I'm thinking, wow, that's really smart. And so some of those strategies are borrowing from the naughty boys in order to survive. And so I don't know if we want to talk about that too much, but
we'll get into that on the Rumble chat. Just a
okay.
placeholder for that. I'm wearing my Shungite pendants today too. I was feeling
All
the
right.
energies this morning, so I said, "Oh, I better double up for the show here." I've got all
Yeah.
the Shungite around the computer as well. Cliff is in the chat too, and he's adding to this too because I was struggling there to ask you that last question. He says, "Dude, it's novel. It's novel for a reason. If you can't articulate it, likely it is not yet labeled. This is new to all of us. We're going through this weird transition, although it's happened in the history of our time. But for us, it's so far away that it's not in our collective consciousness, maybe in our DNA memory, and that might help us navigate here as it develops further. But let me ask you, Meg, are you feeling this in between time too, this metamorphosis somebody else was saying in the chat? And how does that tie into the astrology of the moment right now? What's so critical about right now, this novel period of time of what Cliff Highkill's hyper novelty, which actually I think was pegged for April 2nd or April 1st or 3rd. So we're in that smack dab in the moment now. Meg.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like there's so much I could say to that. And to first answer the first part of your question, yes, I'm definitely feeling it. I'm going through something with my neck right now, really crazy. I'm going through it with my body. I'm having a really hard time sleeping. And I've been noticing a lot of our soul family out there saying the same thing, that they're either sleeping a lot or not sleeping at all. And I've been feeling a lot today around how, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know this out there, we are now in the photon band, right? Our solar system is now in the photon band, where in the sidereal astrology, whenever we enter the age of Aquarius or the age of Leo, our sun enters the photon band, which means we get more higher frequencies from galactic center. And there's so many things happening on so many different layers. It's like that's going on. That's the greater astrological cycle that's going on, that's waking up the whole planet, that's elevating us on top of the major solar flares that are happening, on top of, in the Western astrology, this month of April is one of the craziest astrological months we will ever have in our lives, with the great North American eclipse, a new solar eclipse in Aries, which Aries is the first sign in astrology that rules our foundations, right? Aries is not just energy and drive and assertion, it's foundation, right? Our basic value and foundation. And so having this new moon solar eclipse in Aries with the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus, the second sign in astrology, which will be exact on April 20th, we're entering whole new territory here that is weird. That's the right word that you guys were saying before. It is going to feel really weird. It is not going to feel stable at all for quite a while. I think not until maybe 2026 at the soonest, to be honest with you guys, when Uranus gets out of Taurus, but not stable at all, can be very triggering for people who are not on that woo path yet. This month in particular, with the Mercury retrograde in Aries, a lot of people are going to be more impatient than usual, more triggered than usual when they're not understanding what is going on. So that's going to be a big theme that I wanted to bring up in the show today with our brothers and sisters that are not awake yet. They're going to be way more on edge, way more impatient, saying things to us that may feel like kind of daggers or hits. But I keep feeling Spirit say the whole past few days very strong. Don't take anything personally from others that they may be saying, and in particular, the ones that are not kind of hip to what's going on at the moment. Because imagine how triggering it is, and imagine how much of an ego death it is when all of these systems are changing and we have no stability to then learn that you've been duped and you bought the stories.
Right.
I mean, is there anything more triggering than that?
It's debilitating, destabilizing. It makes you question everything about yourself. And it's also, I'm seeing this in a few people right now too. I don't know if the right word is depression, but I could see like people who used to mock the tinfoil hatters just a couple of years ago. Now they're sitting and they're looking at me like, fuck, those guys were right.
Yeah.
How did I not see it? I must be stupid. And I used to laugh at those people, right? So now they're feeling this whole anxiety about themselves, thinking perhaps that that they weren't at the height or at the level to be able to see it before. So now they're questioning their whole, they had confidence. Okay, this is it. They were walking with confidence yesterday, and now suddenly their own personal confidence is shook by the fact that everything they thought they knew and the people they were laughing at who got it all wrong suddenly is reversed on them. Talk about that too in this retrograde. Like, what's the craziest part right now? Like, we're seeing road rage. You said people are getting triggered. I'm seeing that here too in reports in Ottawa. Like, what else do we have to deal with here in terms of the retrograde and this feeling here of some of these normies waking up with this really bad attitude? On one hand, that goes towards the rage, and on the other hand, that goes towards self-deprecation. What's the other word I just said? Losing confidence, or maybe being depressed. Like, how do we deal with all of that?
Yeah, well, it makes a lot of sense. And I made some slides, JC, that I can bring up if you like for this retrograde. But what I want to say first off is in Western astrology, Aries is the sign that, yes, it rules our foundations. Yes, it rules our divine masculine side, and it rules our inner warriorship and our boundaries, right? So I feel like our brothers and sisters that have not waken up yet, for lack of a better word, there's going to be all of those, levels of the grief. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The different levels of waking up, like you go through the depression, then the grief. This month, we're going to see a lot of that anger coming up, in particularly because Aries rules anger and frustration. And the anger of that they have given their power away, right? So seamlessly. So that's going to be a big theme of a lot of conversations that we're going to be having with people. I'll share with you guys personally, and I don't want to get too emotional here, that and I'll just say it, that my mom woke up recently. And I didn't think that that was going to happen possibly in my lifetime. And that happened very recently. And she is fucking pissed off. Okay. Yeah. So and she is an Aries. So that's really intense. But people are pissed that did certain things within the past few years. And we're going to have to, well, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but for me personally, I feel guided to lovingly hold their hands, to lovingly hold space for them, because it's going to be way more intense for them to go through that process than it was for most of us. When we did that and I'm Penny, you and JC have been awake for way longer than me. But for me, it's been since, like 2012, 2013, and going through that process where we were still in normie land. There was still some stability. So I had that buffer to go through it, right? But people just doing it now, like I said earlier, there's no buffer, there's no stability. So it's really triggering. But with this Mercury retrograde in Aries, it's really, really interesting. It's going to be from April 1st to April 25th through 27 degrees to 15 degrees of the sign of Aries. And this is happening while we are in an eclipse season, right? So we're right in the eclipse portal until April 8th, when we have that new moon solar eclipse, the Great North American eclipse. But even the couple weeks after an eclipse happens, we're still in that eclipse season because it's a big energy. It's like a new moon or full moon times 10. So it's very wonky and very intense having this Mercury retrograde in Aries, in the sign that the solar eclipse is happening in, which is interesting because it's a new moon eclipse. So it's about new beginnings, but Mercury retrogrades are about reviewing and reflecting. So I think there's going to be a lot happening this month, but it's not until, and it's interesting what you said earlier, Penny, May, June, July, when it's more out in the open and things are more clearer, if that makes sense. So while we're in this retrograde, oh, did you want to say something, JC?
Nope. Hold on. I clicked the wrong button.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
it's a retrograde. I'm sorry.
That's the retrograde. And also I made a spelling mistake in here, by the way.
No problem.
We are havid during an eclipse season. We are having during an eclipse season. But anyways, it's a good time to review and reflect and take a sacred pause, take stock of our lives. It's not the best time to be initiating something new, signing important documents, or making important decisions. But of course, sometimes things happen in life and we have to do things in retrogrades, right? So it's not the end of the world if we do have to make a big decision or we do have to sign a document. So I just want to be clear about that. And also Mercury retrogrades are always very funky energy because Mercury rules a lot of day-to-day activities. It rules social media. It rules our phones, our cars, our computers, communication, our mind, how we think, the words we speak, and short distance travel and cars. So all of these areas are like acting weird, not in a free-flowing energy forward, and we can have more delays and setbacks in those areas. And with this Mercury retrograde being in Aries, as I said before, we're reviewing where have we given our power away, right? And that's going to be very, very triggering for the people who have not woken up yet. So we're going to have to be supporting them during that time. And even for those of us in the woo, we're going to be realizing certain areas, whether it's through friendship or maybe work or family, different situations where we've given our power away, where we need to take our energy and power back. And because Aries is the sign that rules conflict and confusion, people are going to be feeling more aggressive, more frustrated, more confused, impatient, and blunt. So very important to not take anything seriously, and not seriously, personally. Take things very seriously right now. And also in terms of country astrology, Canada has its rising sign at 16 degrees of Aries. So this whole retrograde is going to bring some really funky scenarios to Canada, some sort of confusion, but at the same time, information being revealed about Canada that will become more clear after we get past the retrograde. So Canada will be very highlighted during this period.
That's funny. We just started the retrograde, and the premiers here across the country are asking for an emergency meeting with Trudeau right now because they're seeing revolts in every provinces with this new carbon tax that just took effect on April 1st. So things are going downhill very fast here, and perhaps going in the direction of the RCMP report from just a couple of weeks ago that was released, suggesting that Canadians were going to revolt when they realize how broke they are. Fascinating times here for Canada. Thank you, Meg. I really appreciate that. I want to bring up this screen also. Cliff and I posted this earlier this morning. I think we both did at the same time, but he says, yeah, time is short. Get moving. All you can do is warn them. Of course, you can see a knight there asking the sheep at the house there to wake up. And if they don't listen, move on so you can warn others. And so time is short. I believe we're in that transition now, as Penny was saying at the beginning of the show here, we're in between those two time frames right now. He made another comment. I want both your takes on this. And while we do that, I'm also going to give the link down here to the YouTube audience to come and join us now for the Rumble conversation. But Cliff was saying here, the unaware have lost their sense of belonging to the populace.
Yeah.
They used to feel powerful because they were on the same side as the establishment, right? Now they feel not so empowered anymore, right? So they feel kind of out of, they kind of feel like we did, basically. Now they're the black sheep, or, the ostracized from the community. That's a very hard place to be in, specifically now during an awakening process. What do you make of this comment, Penny, and what can you add to that?
I think it's right on. I think that sense of belonging, and especially if your inner authority, or what Meg has been calling you, you gave your power away. When you do that, once you do that, you're going to have to borrow power from somebody. And so where are you going to get it from? You're going to get it from whoever you think is in power. And when they turn out to have been a sham, a charade, corrupt, really disappointing, then it makes it very difficult to realize, oh, wow, I gave my power to them. What was I thinking? And then you feel bad, you feel guilty. There's confusion. I was thinking back when you were talking, Meg, about I had 17 years after Kundalini to reconcile everything I knew and all the stuff I saw with little men in brown robes. And I fought that tooth and nail and just gave myself a whole lot of trouble. And then finally, when I said, okay, this is the new normal, that was when, wow, everything just took off.
Right.
So, people, I have a much more condensed time frame to make that kind of adjustment. The luxury of 17 years is not going to be there.
No, they have a very big pill to swallow in a very short period of time. Meg, did you want to add to that too? The part of being in community versus being outside and having maybe for the first time to follow their own intuition as to what's right, as opposed to following the herd. Like, is there astrology that also is hindering that, or maybe supporting that at this time too? What would you say?
Well, I think the astrology is definitely supporting all of us, whether we're awake or not awake at the moment, to become awake and to become more sovereign. So in a way, I think that the process is going to be harder for some of the non-woo people at the moment, but they're also being supported in being able to do that. So I know that whoever wants to be on that higher timeline, so to speak, can be on. And, it's really important to note as well, like what we went through was really fucked up the past 4 years. And I'm just getting visions in my mind of, when I was locked out of Canada for 2 years and being in Belgium, not being able to do anything for a year and a half, not being able to go to the Christmas markets and watch all the normies do their little, they called it the COVID safe ticket, and get into the Christmas markets and get into the restaurants. Like, they thought they were in a powerful position and they looked down on us, right? But now, like you said, JC, and that was so eloquent how you said that, the tables have turned. It's reversed now. Now we're in the power position, not that we're better than them, but they're going to experience that ego death, right? So it is like a spiritual shamanic initiation, what they are going through, I think. It's very powerful.
Wow. Okay. And that was the YouTube conversation. Imagine what we're going to say on Rumble, folks. Hold on. So let me bring the link back down to the live chat. That was a lot to take in. And first of all, thank you both of you for all of that insight. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that part too, because I think this is where, like, we could talk about dates and predictions all we want, but the human aspect of this change and this growth and this challenge period that we're in now, that's worth a lot of conversations. It's worth a lot of ink and a lot of books, because again, it's so novel to all of us here too, and we really need to be able to talk about it and to not be afraid to talk about it, share emotions, be vulnerable, all that stuff. So I really appreciate both of your insights. Guys, if you're still watching us on YouTube, here's a link now. Please come and join us on the Rumble feed here. We're going to get into the look-see and also this crazy eclipse that's coming up next week, and whether or not it's good or bad for humanity. So join us in a second here on Rumble. So remove here. Yes.